We are very fortunate that in 2011, 2 community members came to Jeff's shed with an idea worth sharing. They had a vision of how powerful a TEDx event could be for high school students. So they pitched their idea, and here we are today, hosting our 4th biannual TEDx event at Cape Elizabeth High School. Please help me in welcoming one of the women who has made this event possible, Sara Lennon.
Thank you. I'm uncharacteristically speechless. I feel so moved to be part of this. These speakers, all of you who have come today from far and wide, and worked so hard and practiced and planned and no doubt wrestled with some jitters to share with us not just your stories and your humor and your passion and your ideas that for sure have changed all the people here, but also will radiate out to people's friends and families as they talk about them. But you shared your vulnerability, your humanness, your fears, and that's so powerful. So thank you all so much from the bottom of not just my heart, but all of our hearts for being part of this day. And thank you to the audience again, because I know you're all busy and you all have lives that are full, and yet you took this time and you came. And like Griffin said, I could just feel that everyone here was completely with each speaker, not just intellectually, but emotionally empathizing and identifying, because I would pause in each speaker and I would try to listen behind me what was going on, and there wasn't a sound. You could hear a pin drop, and that's when I knew that all of you, forgive me for saying, were connecting with the speaker in these really fundamental, emotional, human ways. And that's what I love so much about this day, that there is this intense feeling of connection that can be rare. So thank you all for coming and being incredible. And thirdly, I just need to give a shout out to our student steering committee. I showed up the second week in September, and I walked into Miss Nielsen's room, and there were like 25, I would say girls, but actually they're young women, students, sitting there all fired up. And I thought, wow, they're all women. And then I thought, well, that makes sense, because the future is female, right? So we were fired up. And one of the very first tasks we did is to assign the all-important who was going to bring the snacks to the meetings. And the kids said, we'll do it. And we said, great. And the next meeting, they showed up with no actual food or anything to drink, but they had these baskets of colorful packages. And I was like, hey, you guys, what is that? And they said, oh, it's really cool. Try one. So I unwrapped it and I put it in my mouth, and it was this like bizarre experience. It started out sweet, and then as it melted, it was this horrible tasting, slow fizz, and then it exploded in your mouth. And that was all the food we ever had at any of our meetings. And the weird thing is I got to really enjoy it. But I later came to realize that that candy perfectly describes our steering committee. It was really sweet at the beginning. And then it was pretty slow for a while because they all had fall sports and they were all really busy and they weren't quite there. And then it started to fizz, and about 2 weeks ago, it exploded. And they were here all the time, day and night. Every time I walked in that room, there was a whole group of them, and they kicked it into 5th gear, and they made this whole thing happen. And it's been so much fun. They've kept us real and grounded, and most important of all, laughing. So thanks to all you guys. And now, if you'll indulge me for just 2 minutes, I want to tell a quick story, because it's not really fair for me to take any credit for the inspiration for this, what used to be a day, and now I think we have to call it a tradition. It really was Mary Townsend's brainchild, and like most of the things we did together, I just kind of followed in her wake, and whatever she thought of, I was all in. So I think it was almost 9 or 10 years ago, I saw on Facebook that this person that I thought was cool was going to this thing called TEDxYouth. And I had zero idea what it was, but I thought if she's going, I'm going. So I drove to Brunswick and went into the Frontier, which is a little cafe there, into this little back room. And I experienced my first TED Day. And I left so astonished, so changed in some fundamental ways that I couldn't believe it. And of course, as I always do, I dragged my phone out of my purse as I was literally walking through the door, and I called my best friend and my partner in crime, Mary Townsend, and I said, "Do you promise me you'll come next year?" And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, no, I mean, do you promise? And she said, "Okay." So the next year we showed up, and the venue was way bigger, and it was in Portland, and it was just as incredible. And here's the thing, I sat next to Mary, and after every single talk, she leaned over and she whispered, "Sara, the kids have to hear this." It's like, okay. And then the next talk, "Sara, this should be for students, not adults." It's like, okay. And then at lunch, she cornered me and she said, "Sara, let's be serious. We're way too old to change the world, okay? Like, we're done. But the kids, students, high school students, they're not too old. They're perfect. They're fired up. They're idealistic. They're open to new ideas. They're looking for direction. They want to change the world, and they have the time and the energy to do it, and we need to bring TEDx to them." I said, okay. So at the end of the event, she buttonholed Adam Burke, who was pretty busy since he was the head of the whole thing and the curator and the founder of TEDxYouth in Maine. She went straight over to him and she said, "Adam, we have to do this for the high school kids, all over Maine." And he's like, "Who is this?" And then she wouldn't let him leave and go greet his other hundreds of guests until he promised to meet us at the local Buzz next month. And then she started wandering around finding all the speakers and saying, "Hey, don't you think an event for kids would be amazing? Would you mind being a speaker there?" And they're like, "Okay." And so it began. Mary started talking to teachers. She started sending TED Talks to various administrators at the school. And true to his word, Adam showed up at the local Buzz and he said, "You know what, you guys? I think all of Maine might be a little ambitious, and maybe even Cumberland County can work, but let's do a pilot event in Cape first to try it out." And we said, great. So Adam, thank you very much, helped us through the entire first year. And thank you very much to Mr. Shedd for agreeing to what was then a pretty crazy idea. And so Mary really single-handedly had the brilliant idea, and then she sort of loved us all into all the work that it would take in only the way Mary can do. And it was an incredible experience for me to be able to work with her on this thing that she loved so passionately, and in so many ways, as her beautiful, talented daughter explained, is so essential to who Mary Townsend was. She was the living embodiment of connection and bringing people together for really significant, valuable, profound, life-changing relationships. And that's what she saw that this TEDx would be. And so it was, this year for us, obviously enormously challenging and sad and moving at times to not have Mary with us. And the first meeting, Betsy looked up at the bulletin board and saw a picture of Mary with a team, and we all cried. And then we channeled her energy, and we said, we're going to do this for Mary, because she would love it. And we did. And we thought of her all the time, and we still love her. And I feel like, in so many ways, she's been watching this whole day, beaming with pride and bursting with pride for her daughter, who did her proud. So, sorry, that was much longer than I meant to go, but Mary, we love you.